Welcome to Real Estate Real World, where we talk to the movers, shakers, and leaders that are getting it done right now in the real estate industry and beyond. Your host is Marguerite Crespillo, and she started this podcast simply to talk to cool people about what's really happening in this crazy roller coaster ride of real estate. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes and stay up to date on the newest stuff by adding yourself to the list at www.realestaterealworld.com. Now your host, Marguerite Crespillo.
Hello, everybody. This is Marguerite Crespillo, and welcome to Real Estate Real World, where we get to talk to all the cool people, the movers and the shakers in the real estate arena. And today is no exception. Today we get to talk to Brindley Tucker. Welcome.
Hi.
And Brindley was introduced to me from Matt Johnson and Greg McDaniel. We have both been guests on their show, and those guys are awesome. So they always refer me incredible guests, and I'm thrilled to get to talk to you today, Brindley.
I'm excited to talk with you as well.
Good. Well, let me read off your bio so our listeners can hear who you are, because you're kind of a big deal. It says Brindley Tucker unifies teams and helps agents increase leverage in their businesses. She is a licensed realtor and the owner of Your Realty Leverage, Inc., a recruiting, training, and coaching firm. Throughout her career, she has served in an operations capacity, love that, within several industries from Wall Street to real estate. Brindley previously owned a successful real estate marketing and transaction management company where she closed over 2,000 real estate transactions. She gathered experience in building a successful transaction business from an independent operation to a team of 7 in just 3 short years. This expertise now allows her to share her knowledge by assisting agents, brokers, and industry leaders to attract and retain top talent for their teams and offices. She helps bridge the gap between operations and sales through recruiting, training, coaching, and consulting. She's also the owner and developer of Transaction Management Academy, a full transaction management training program. A resident of the Tampa Bay area since childhood, she graduated from Northside High School, went on to graduate from Texas A&M University, where when she is not attending to the requirements of being a business owner, she spoils Maggie, her 7-year-old Yorkie Poo, and she'll give you the same kind of full attention to help your team succeed. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you. Yes, my fur kid.
Well, I have 6 human kids, and then I have 3 fur kids. So, but now
God bless you.
My kids are all grown now, so now I just have fur kids at home. I don't have kids anymore. Although my 22-year-old called this morning and said, "Hey, Mom, they're doing some inspection on my apartment. I'm going to come crash at the house." I'm like, all right. So
they always come back. We always come back.
Always. I love it, though. I wouldn't have it any other way. So
massive respect for you. I mean, 6 children raised. That's just, wow.
It's what caused all these wrinkles and the gray hair that I get to cover up. And
at least you have an excuse. I don't have an excuse. I'm in the mirror this morning going, where's this coming from? Realtors. That's where this is coming from.
Oh, my goodness. That is so true. So I love your story because I teach a lot about agents really learning to run their business like a business. Like, to me, it's the biggest catastrophe of the industry, so to speak, in that, most agents, with all due respect, they get into this business because they really don't want to work. They've got a regular job somewhere, and they decided that they want to have a flexible schedule, and they want to kind of work when they want to work and don't when they don't, which is fantastic. That's the great part about the industry. But they're independent contractors, and they never really learn to run it like a true business. They don't understand the business concept of how things work. So tell me how you ended up in this arena.
So my background, I'm always learning based, and I'm a student in everything in life. And I always, throughout my career, when I wanted to get into a new industry or learn a new role, I always became an assistant. I always thought it was a great path to learn a role, to become acclimated in it. So my first job out of college was an executive assistant in investment banking on Wall Street. So I have always been operationally supporting leaders throughout their business. And about 4.5 years ago, I fell into the real estate industry, mostly because I'm unemployable and because I don't want to work for anybody. And I don't like to be told what to do, like most entrepreneurs. And so I was going to become a real estate agent. And I was like, again, I don't want to just jump into this industry, which so many realtors do. And they see dollar signs and they're like, I'm just going to jump in. And they end up wasting all of this money in their first year or two of business with nothing to show for it. So I took a position, an administrative position with a local brokerage. And some things happened in my life where I had to make some changes and started a transaction management business. I saw a need for it in the market and was really good at it. Started doing marketing for agents virtually and for multiple agents. And then it kind of morphed its way into teaching me how to do contract to close. And then I would do contract to close and other agents on the deal would ask me for my services. Well, if you are familiar with the DISC assessment, I'm a DI. I'm 99% D and I'm 99% I. So by the end of 4 years, I was burnt out. I was like, get me out of here. And I had a bunch of SCs working for me. So I had done a really good job of leveraging the day-to-day, but I wanted out. I wanted out. And, I was able to build the team in such a short amount of time because I am a DI. But transaction coordination wasn't where my heart was anymore. And I was able to have a pretty big influence on the team members. When I decided to sell my business, I sold it to all of them. I consulted my way the business over to them, and now they're all running their own companies.
Wow.
And so, here it was for me, I found out that my strengths lied in finding talent and developing talent, and especially that arena of the SC, administrative, operational, they're not people that typically voice and have huge voices. They're not typically people that have advocates that pour into them. And I just saw such a need for it. And because of my life and where I've come from, every day is a gift. And I just wanted to help people. So I got a tap on the shoulder and somebody said, have you thought about coaching and training? And I said, not really. And we did a 1-3-5 goal sheet on what I needed to do to get out of my business. And I was able to sell my business and shut it down in 3.5 weeks.
Wow.
And I haven't looked back.
It's so funny because I've been in real estate 23 years, so a long time. Wow. And when I first got into real estate, probably I would say at least the first 10 years, if not more, nobody had transaction coordinators. Like, that was unheard of. That was not something that you did. And I remember when I first got into real estate, so I started my company in January of 96, and within 6 months I hired an assistant. I'm like, there's no way I could do this, because I'm kind of a DI too. And so I hired an assistant and never looked back. I've never not had an assistant. And so from day one almost in my real estate career, I had somebody helping me. And then back then, like I said, we didn't have transaction managers or transaction coordinators. So we developed this whole checklist and this, checklist of what needed to happen in the transaction. And it was pretty amazing. And then now, of course, there are amazing people like you who do it all for everybody. I wouldn't have had to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah. So, and that's what I have found is that agents are salespeople, and Gary Keller, who's an industry leader, tells us that there's 5 things that a real estate agent should be doing, and everything else should be leveraged. And I've been a firm believer that when you come into the business, you don't necessarily have the income to support an assistant or to feed someone else.
Exactly.
So you start with transaction management. In almost every market except Boise, Idaho, where I can't seem to find one. So if anyone out there knows a transaction coordinator in Boise, Idaho, let me know. They, everywhere, that's an easy way to start with leverage. And 99% of our clients, when I had my team, their buyers and sellers paid for the service.
Right.
And so I tell agents from day one, start using a closing coordinator. An independent closing coordinator that will take care of all the paperwork and the appointments and the deadlines. Plus, you don't know what you don't know when you get into the business. And a talented closing coordinator or transaction manager will know the business, and they'll make you look like a rock star in front of your clients.
So one of the things that I hear people talk about is when it comes to managing the transaction, right? Like when it comes to the disclosures and the process and all that, some people will say, well, but I need to know that information. Mm-hmm. I need to know, what is there and what, and so what is your response to that typically?
My response is that you will learn the process. It's impossible not to. We don't just hand over. A big common mistake that agents make is they think, oh, I have a closing coordinator. I hand them the contract and then I'll see you at closing. And that's not the truth. That's not the best way to handle it, A, for your client, but B, you're not going to learn if you do that. But if you're reading your emails, which most agents don't do, if your closing coordinator is seeing you on things and you're reading them and you're asking questions, you're going to learn how to do it. And my most successful agents that are top producers today started using a closing coordinator from day one, and they know everything. It's impossible not to learn. I mean, you've been in real estate for 23 years. I mean, it's impossible not to learn. If that's a limiting belief that people use so that they can keep control, because it's a lot easier to call an inspector than it is to lead generate.
Well, now that is a very fine point. You're right, because it's easier to go, well, okay, so let's talk about that for a moment, because I'm sure I know you see the same thing, is that what a typical agent does is they hustle, they get a couple deals in contract, and then they stop lead generating and they focus all their time and energy on working on that deal. Then that deal closes, they're out of business, they got to hustle again. That's why you see the roller coaster ride
90 days.
Of a typical real estate agent.
Yeah, 90 days. So what we do now affects us 90 days from now. And so they stop lead generating, and then all of a sudden they don't have any deals. And that's the number one thing when you hire talent, is you're now responsible for someone else's family. You're now responsible for someone else. So if you're not in the habit of lead generating every day, it's very selfish to try to bring somebody on.
So I know that, okay, so here's some of the other objections I hear, right? Some of the other objections are, I want to only pay them when I close a deal because I can't afford to pay them on a regular basis, which I'd love to hear your opinion. I have my own opinions of that.
That's not scalable. That's my opinion.
Right. And, and so they go through this whole thing where, well, I can't afford somebody right now. And I don't know about you, but I'm sure you have a number. I think that the average agent can do about 12 to 18 deals a year. Not even great, but they can do that without help. But they're never going to break through that 12 deals a year or so if they do not get help.
Yeah. So a couple things with that. If you're paying per transaction, it's not scalable. Anything in your business, operationally, systems, hiring, recruitment, anything that you're currently doing in your business, you should always be asking yourself, will this system work if I'm doing 100 times the amount of transactions I'm doing right now? And if you think about it, if you are compensating them per transaction, your closing coordinator will end up making more money than your agents will at some point. So I would much rather see my operations managers and my admins and my TCs be tied to my profit, because then they're bought into production. And I had this discussion yesterday with salespeople and with agents. How do we track their production? Through units and volume, right? It's monetary. We can look at their units and volume, and we can know whether or not their production's increasing or decreasing. With operations admin and TC, that's more difficult to do because they're not tied necessarily to a monetary amount. So how do you judge their performance? Referrals and reviews. How much of your business is coming from referrals? What do your Zillow reviews look like? Because admin and ops are directly tied to customer service. That's their job. They're service-based. So if you don't have good Zillow reviews, or you don't have a lot of business coming back to you from your referrals, you probably want to take a look at your operations. So that's number one. So if you tie them to profit, they're going to be more tied to the business and increase that level of customer service in order to increase profit, right?
So explain to me what that would look like. They get some sort of a base salary plus an amount of the profit?
Yeah, so a percentage of profit based on how you want to break down your profit. I've seen it done where you can do total baseline profit. You can put a cap on it if you'd like. You can also start, at a certain amount. So after the company makes their first $10,000, $20,000 worth of profit, that's when your percentages kick in. You can also do year over year. So if last year we did $20,000 in profit and we did $40,000 this year, you only get bonus on the difference. So it's not total profit, it's year over year. This also will help you if you ever want to implement profit share. So if you ever want to implement some type of profit share in your business, you can set up a whole profit share tree and plan when you start tying everything back to profit.
So because of what I hear a lot of agents do, the mistake that I've made this mistake in the past, and I've heard other agents do it as well, is they say, okay, well, I'll give them, I don't know, $12 an hour, whatever the number is, doesn't matter what it is, 12 or $15 an hour, and then I'll give them $100 a deal or something like that, which sounds like you said, it's not scalable. So what sounds good in theory, okay, when you close 2, 3, 5 deals a month, that's an extra 2 or 3, $500 bonus, which is great. When you close 25 deals in a month, right, and you're struggling to make the bills because your expenses are so high, and your administrative person gets paid $2,500 or $3,000 on top of their salary, it becomes a challenge, right?
Yeah. So 2 things on that. First of all, I want people working for me that are bought into my business and my vision and my mission. I want people working for me that want to accomplish the mission and vision that I'm a part of. I want partners in my business, and therefore, if I want them to work that hard for me, I need to be willing to take care of them. When I start counting nickels and dimes and pennies, I'm in selfish zone, as I call it, as a leader. I'm not in selfless zone. And then second of all, I never want to, and with that said, I don't ever want to give my partners in my business something that I have to take away. So you just described, you could have 5 deals one month and 25 the next. So how do they balance their income and how they're providing? Also remember that this mid-level is not like us. They don't get to make more money tomorrow because they sign more deals. Most of them are living paycheck to paycheck. I want to make sure that when my partners and my team members come to work, they're not stressed about money. They're not stressed about paying their bills. I'm going to have a higher level and a higher quality of partner and team member in my business if they're taken care of. So that's number one. Never take away anything never give anything you're going to have to take away. And then second of all, what happens if you decide to raise your price point and lower your units? Is that fair to your admin and to your person that's essentially the backbone and the foundation of your business? Remember, this person is doing everything you don't want to do, but yet you don't want to pay them or compensate them to do all of that.
So interesting, what I say a lot of times is that, first of all, God does not put a salesperson and a good manager in the same body. We know that, right? He just doesn't. There's some wacky wackadoodle freaky freaks that are able to do that, but for the most part, I haven't not met one. The second part is, I think that agents need to remember there's 2 types of people. There are people who get paid for results, which is what we get as salespeople, and then there are people who get paid for time, which is your administrative people. And the way that I like to describe it differently is there's queen bees and worker bees. Worker bees can't survive without the queen bee, and the queen bee can't survive without the worker bees. But those worker bees are doing the work all the time, and they get paid for time. They are the people who can typically go home and shut off, where us psychotic salespeople cannot, right? We're waking up at 3 a.m. trying to figure stuff out.
And they're typically not motivated by money like we are. They're usually motivated by task and completion. The high, so to speak, that we as entrepreneurs and salespeople get from closing a deal, they get that from checking off a box on a checklist.
Right.
That's how their brains work. And, without divulging too much information, when I consulted my way out of my business, I mapped out how certain individuals in my organization could triple their income within 90 days to 180 days. And one of them chose not to. She chose to go work for one of my competitors just as an employee, a W-2. She didn't want to own her own business. And that moment I learned, that she wanted to be able to spend her nights and weekends with her family. She didn't want to own her own business and have to do all the responsibility that came with that. And guess what? That's okay.
Right.
That's okay. And those are the type of people that I need in my organization working for me, because they're intentional, they're focused when they come to work, and they're tied to task, which I don't care about the details.
Well, and it's funny that you talk about the details because, again, as salespeople, we are more bottom line oriented. And we think everything takes 5 minutes. Like, I think everything takes 5 minutes, right?
Yes.
So, funny story, I'll never forget, Dallas, who was my manager for years. She worked for me for about 14 years. And she, early on, she had to put listings in the MLS, right? And I'd be like, what is taking you so long? Like, that only takes 5 minutes, right? Like, it could only take 5 minutes to put that listing in the MLS. So one day I'm sitting in my office and she walks in with the other people on my team. And she walks in, she sets the MLS sheet on the table and she sets a timer next to it. And I go, what are you doing? She goes, well, we're all confused because we can't figure out what we're doing wrong, that it only takes you 5 minutes, because it takes us about 30 to 40 minutes to get that listing put in the MLS. I'm like, well, that's crazy. They go, well, so we want to watch you do it to see what we're doing wrong.
Great.
It was brilliant. It was brilliant because I sat down. Of course, it took me like 30 to 35 minutes. And then I got partway through and I got frustrated because I didn't save it and I lost the information. And like I was beside myself, right? And I was like, all right. So clearly things take more than 5 minutes, number one, and I will now back off. So
and that's the biggest thing. So my clients that I coach, I don't just coach ops and admin. I coach agents on how to hire, how to fire, and how to keep their team members. And that is one of the most important things that I coach on, because DIs, are so get from point A to point B as quickly as possible.
Right.
And admins we still want to get from point A to point B, but we're going to take our time to make sure everything is done right.
Right.
And what we do what high Ds and Is do is we'll come in and we'll just brain dump. Or we'll come in 15 times throughout the day or send them an email and say, do this, do this, do this. And then we don't think about it again until we get a phone call from a client asking about it, or something pops up in our email and reminds us. So ops and admin have to be able to keep painting the picture of what the cumulative to-do list looks like, because we forget that. And so I always tell agents, if you're not having a daily huddle in the morning, then you're not communicating. And a daily huddle is a quick 15 minutes so that the admin can say, this is where we are on our list. This is the priority that I think it should be. And this is how long I think it's going to take. And this is why, right? And then the next morning, brain dump agent, right? Agent gets to come in, all those things that were spewing in your head at 2 a.m. that woke you up, you can dump, brain dump, and then the admin can reprioritize and make her list. But that communication has to happen. When that's not happening is when the high D starts going, okay, oh my goodness, now it's not getting done. Things are falling through the cracks. She's not moving fast enough, just because they don't know.
Right. Yeah, I remember somebody saying one time they called it the seagull approach, right? Fly in, dump a bunch of crap on the desk, and fly out. And that is probably the biggest challenge for real estate agents in finding. So let me describe how I say this. So again, the seagull approach, they fly in, dump a bunch of crap, fly out. Usually an agent hires the first person who's breathing, that walks past their desk. They don't take the time, the energy, the resources to hire right. They throw that person in a desk, they dump a bunch of crap on their desk and fly out. And then they come back 2 weeks later and the poor admin is sitting there lost and confused, doesn't know what they're supposed to be doing, how they're supposed to be doing it. And the agent goes, see, I can't find good help.
Yep.
Yeah.
So there's a difference between recruiting talent and putting a butt in a seat.
Okay.
And when we don't follow a thorough recruiting process, and we don't vet people, and we don't ask for proof of skill set, and we don't check references, and we don't conduct 2 or 3 interviews with this person, anybody can show up in an interview and put on a show. I call it, it's like online dating, right?
Yeah.
So you look at their match profile and, oh, they look good on paper, they're cute. And so then you set up your first date. Everyone on a first date is like, I'm awesome.
Right.
I've got this going on. I've got this. And then as you start second date and third date, they start showing up as their real selves. And if you're not digging deep to find out who they really are, I can teach a smart, loyal, hardworking person anything. I can't teach someone those qualities. I also can't force someone to be a cultural fit in my organization, right? And I have to know first and foremost what my mission, my vision, and my core values are in order to know if this person's going to fit into that and into my big why, right? So it's setting the standards and expectations for your recruiting process, sticking to it, right? What happens is so many of us look at that resume, they look good on paper, we get in front of them, you like horses, I like horses, great, let's start working together.
Right.
We know nothing about this person. And I can't tell you, and I cannot explain enough how I've gotten to a 3rd round of interview and the person has shown up and I get to see the real person. Or I've called a reference and I've asked the right questions and they're like, no, that person was always on their cell phone, they never showed up on time. Well, those are red flags.
Right.
Right? That shows somebody that's punching a clock, not treating it like a career.
Well, and so again, I think of all the objections that I hear in this because I love this conversation. And one of the objections is, I don't have time to do all that. Or the other thing is I see a typical agent will hire somebody that is just like them, that they like. They're like, oh, this gal's a D, or this, they're motivated, they're energetic, they're all this. They hire somebody who's just like them, and that is a train wreck too.
Absolutely, absolutely. So the first thing to address is I don't have the time. You don't have you can't afford not to have the time, right? So the first thing I ask agents is, we're supposed to, realistic goal for us year over year is to double our production, right? So most times I ask agents, what's your goal this year? How many transactions did you close last year? Closed 12. What's your goal this year? 24. Okay, great. But I don't have time to lead generate for talent. Well, do you believe that if you had a strong admin, you'd have a better chance of reaching your goal? Absolutely. So then what you're telling me, when you don't take the time to lead generate for talent, you're telling me your goal is negotiable. Are your goals negotiable?
Right.
All of a sudden, no. So if you're lead generating the way you should, just take a little bit more time. Instead of 3 hours, do 4 hours. Instead of 3 hours, do 2 hours to lead gen for business and 1 hour to lead gen for talent, right? You have to take the time, and sometimes we have to slow down to speed up. And it's going to be messy in the beginning, and it's going to take time, but the benefits and the rewards that you're going to get 6 months to a year from now are unexplainable. They're priceless because you're going to be reaching your goals. Nobody can get to the next level without good leverage. No one succeeds alone, ever.
Oh my goodness, so good.
No one ever succeeds alone. So that's number one. And then what was the second objection that you said?
They hire people like themselves.
You do not need another you in your organization. You are enough. Right?
Oh my goodness.
And think about it. Yeah. I don't need two of me. I need my complement. I need the person that makes up for my blind spots. If you've got both of us and we're the same, we've still got all the same blind spots. We've just doubled them.
Exactly. That is so true. That is so true. I know that one thing that happened for me early on too was I determined that I needed to have other people interview people because I hire the people I like, right? So
Absolutely.
I ended up getting a gal that was a longtime friend of mine. She was a title officer and a manager and stuff. I said, I need you. And then I had two of my good friends interview people. And out of the 5 people that I picked that I thought were great, they did not pick not one of them.
No.
And they had such great opinions and thoughts on them. I was like, I never even thought about that. I never even saw that in them. So if you don't have, an administrative person to hire or find them, go get some friends, people that know you, and have them interview them too.
Yeah. So Monica Reynolds, who I have much admiration and respect, who has kind of paved the way for what I'm doing in the industry, she says, pay your friends and family to stay away. Seriously.
I love
Pay
that.
them to stay away. Right? And I always say this, if you're going to hire friends and family, make sure that you've had a conversation and that you're both on the same page and that you would fire them. Right? Because when we start bringing friends and family into the organization, our standards and our expectations go down. And the number one, I see more problems with agents retaining talent than I see them with hiring talent.
So dig deeper on that.
So I will see an agent hire talent and get this great person in place and then dump all of this on them, like you said, and then they show up, 90 days into the job. Well, this person isn't doing a good job. They haven't done everything right. It's not the way that I want it. They don't have systems and models. When they didn't sit down and clearly outline the standards and expectations of the role when the person came on board. This is where I expect you to be in 30 days. This is where I expect you to be in 60 days. This is where I expect you to be in 90 days. You're going to go to 2 training classes a month. You're going to sit down and you're going to shadow me on every single one of these items. I tell agents, when you are looking to hire an admin, write down everything you don't want to do in your business, because that's now going to become the job responsibilities of your admin. And then you go down that list, and that's where you put them in the list in the order of priority of what you want to come off your plate first. And then that's what you start training on, and they shadow it. And Monica also says, I do it, they do it, and then I watch them do it.
So I've heard that said too, inspect what you expect, right?
Well, and that's where I was going to get next. So that's the next thing. So first is setting the standards and the expectations, then it's inspecting what you expect. right? So it's going back and having daily huddles, and then once a week, one-on-one meetings. Once a week, one-on-one meetings are not for you to train. They're not for you to sit down and sell your vision. They're to inspect what you expect. So that when you get to that 30-day, 60-day, 90-day reviews, they know exactly where they stand because you've been meeting with them on a weekly basis. My admin and I go to lunch every Friday, and we sit down and we have a list of 10 questions that we go through. How was your week? What were your biggest challenges? What can I help you with? What do you see the most help in? And that girl is a beast. In 3 weeks, she has done more for my business because I've had to take the time to make sure that she has the training, the mentoring, and the coaching that she needs. Because if I don't provide that, that's on me.
Okay, so one huge, I guess, I don't know if it's a flaw or an attribute of most agents is they're very ADD. They're extremely inconsistent.
Kitty cats with flashlights.
I've never heard that. So, and I know that I am that personality as well. And so I struggle. I'm sure that many agents have the same challenge with that consistency. It's like you always feel like something comes up, there's other stuff going on, or, it's the consistency for salespeople, I think, is one of the biggest struggles because we're distracted so easily and we have things going on and clients are coming into town to show property and we're bouncy balls.
Mm-hmm. So if you take, let's say $15 an hour times 40 hours a week times 4 weeks is a month times 3, 90 days worth of payroll for someone making $15 an hour is $7,200.
One transaction.
That's one transaction, but that's also $7,000 you're going to lose if you don't make it a priority to give them what they need to set them up for success in their position. And then you're going to be all the way back at square one. So again, you can't afford not to have those weekly meetings. That, as much as I want to, you should see my calendar, Marguerite, between coaching and training and recruiting. I'm stacked from 8 to 5. Now, I love when people cancel because then I get white space that appears on my calendar. But that's blocked for an hour and a half on Friday. And as much as I want to be inclined to go into that lunch with Kaylee and put something in there, I can't.
Right.
Because that shows her as a leader, that sends the message to her that I don't care about what she's investing in my company, so why would she want to work for me? If I can't take an hour and a half out of my week to spend time pouring into her, why would she want to work for me?
Very good point. Very good point. So
I have a responsibility as a leader to grow my people. I should be empowering them, not impressing them.
So that brings me kind of to the next point, is that you talked about retention. Mm-hmm. And retention is obviously a huge issue, and we've been kind of addressing that. What do you think are the best ways, in addition to meeting them every week, or is that really your main platform with which to keep that retention?
There's so much. I think the most important, even before meeting, is knowing what their big why is, how they want to be incentivized, and providing that, and making sure that their big why and their opportunity is always fitting inside of your big why and the organization's big why. So it's sitting down with them and finding out what are their goals. I had a woman that she wanted to go to Ireland, and so we sat down and we said, okay, what's the 135 that you need to do to go to Ireland? She said, I don't need to do a 135. There's no way we can do it. We can't afford it. And we sat down and we mapped the goal, and I held her accountable. And guess what? 6 months later, guess where she was?
Oh, wow. How cool is that?
Right? And that's the important thing. And if I wouldn't have sat down and had her write out her goals, I never would have known that was important to her. Right? So it's really asking, and then also incentivizing them. People leave jobs for better incentives and when they don't feel appreciated. So asking, go ahead.
My brother said that people start to look because they're unhappy, then they'll leave for the money. But people don't usually leave for the money. They started looking because they weren't happy.
Because they don't feel appreciated.
And one other thing, we have a lot of listeners that are not also with KW. So can you explain the 135?
So 135, and it's any type of goal. So you have one main goal, And then you have the 3 priorities to accomplish that goal. And then you have the 5 action steps that you need to do for each priority.
Okay, so let me write this down because I didn't have my pen handy. Hold on. I've heard this before, but I want to make sure I highlight it.
Yeah.
Okay, so the one main goal.
So you have your main goal, and then you set your 3 priorities. So what are the 3 top things you need to do to accomplish that goal? So for instance, I'll use myself as an example. When I decided to sell my company or dissolve it and pass it on, that was the goal, right? To get out of my current situation. Okay. And then I set 3 priorities. And the 3 things I needed to do was I needed to pass it on to my employees and find people to take over the business. I needed to have 6 months income in the bank to make sure that I was supported in my new adventure.
Okay.
And then I believe the third one was that I had to figure out what I was going to do next.
Okay.
Right? And so then I take each of those items and I broke down the 5 action steps that I needed to do. So when I needed to dissolve and figure out how to find the people, I need to interview people. I need to reach out in my industry who wants to have their own business. I need to put a pro forma together to show why they should take over part of the business. So I set my action plans. Right?
Okay.
So that's what it does, is it breaks down your main goal and gives you kind of a roadmap of how you're going to accomplish that.
Okay, so number 1, pick out what your main goal is.
Yes.
The 3 priorities. So let's use our gal who wanted to go to Ireland. Her goal was to go to Ireland. So what would her 3 priorities be?
So she needed to get the money in the bank, right, to pay for the trip. She had to make sure that her business was sustainable for the 2 weeks that they were going to be gone.
Okay.
And she had to put together the trip, the travel plans, the itinerary, book all the items.
And so then what did her action steps turn out to be?
So her 5 action steps for the financial were to put a certain amount away every month. She was going to pick up some extra business to help fund some of it.
Okay.
And then I don't remember what all 5 were, but
those kind of lines, things. Right?
Exactly. And then for her business, she was going to call all her clients, start telling them early, start preparing, making sure her transactions were where they needed to be, and then setting the itinerary, talking to a travel agent, mapping out where they wanted to go, finding the hotels, all of that.
So that's what really an agent, before they even decide to hire somebody, needs to really sit down and figure out their own.
Absolutely.
Right.
What does that person look like? How much money do I need in the bank to support them? And what's my recruiting process going to be?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So because we could talk for days and hours, I have a feeling. As we kind of wind down a little bit today, my question for you is, what is next for you now? So you created this company that you were able to sell, and you were able to help empower these women to create their own, well, women and guys, I don't know, to create their own individual businesses, which I think is really cool, right? Sharing the love. And now what's next for you? Now what are you doing?
So I'm building my company now. I'm building a team of recruiters and trainers so that we can reach more people and help more agents, title companies, lenders, find talent, train them, and retain them. I am starting to do a lot of teaching and leadership and communication and bridging the gap between ops and sales. So I'm rolling out a class called Bridge the Gap Between Ops and Sales, Systems and Models for Organizational Alignment. So it's bringing sales and ops together to communicate and understand one another, and understand that one can't function with the other. And so I'm doing a lot of that type of teaching. Also, I teach a class called When to Hire, How to Hire, and How to Keep. And so it walks you through the recruiting process and how to retain talent and what's important and what you need set up before you go. So my main objective to why I do this is to help people. I want to help people become better leaders, better individuals, and have great lives and just enjoy what they do every day.
So are these classes that are live and in person, or do you have online classes and courses available as well?
Right now, the 2 classes I'm developing are live. I come into the brokerage office or the market centers and I teach them. I also have an online program that we've developed that we're still building. It's available now, but we're continuing to build it more, and it teaches the contract to close process. So it's called the Transaction Management Academy. We found that was the hardest piece for agents to teach an admin. And so it's a series of videos and step-by-step instructions that can be customized to their business to help train their admin on contract to close.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I'm so glad that Matt connected us, because this has been a great conversation. We clearly talk about a lot of the same things, having been in this business for a while. And I really encourage any agent who really wants to go to that next level. You've got to get help.
Yes.
I mean, I don't even know what else to tell you, because they talk about a glass ceiling. Well, there's no glass ceiling. With the glass ceiling is your own head bouncing along the top, because you won't get help, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, you've got to get help. And the most successful people I know of all time have either asked for help, get help, enlist help. So learn to delegate what you hate.
Leverage, leverage, leverage. Leverage yourself professionally. Leverage yourself domestically. I have prepared meals delivered every Wednesday and Sunday, because I ain't got time during the week to be cooking and figuring out what I need to do. I have a dog walker. I have a dry cleaner. I do all of those things because my hourly rate is not the same as theirs. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. I have more time to spend with my family because I spend that little bit extra money to leverage myself domestically. I mean, it's all about leverage. If I don't have a team of people around me, then I can't help more people. So I say, by not leveraging, you're really being selfish, because you're not allowing yourself the opportunity to help others and to serve others.
Do you know that there are people out there that love to do laundry?
Yes!
I can't even believe it.
Right down the street from me.
I'm like, what do you mean you love? Like, I have never done laundry. Funny story, I've told this story before. My husband does his own laundry, and then I have a housekeeper who does our laundry. And my husband doesn't, he likes to do his own. So we had to order a new washer and dryer because ours broke. So the guy comes to deliver it, and my husband and I are there, and he goes, okay, ma'am, would you like to come over here so I can show you a few things about the washer? And my husband busts up and starts rolling on the floor. He goes, you might want to show me.
I know, there's people that love to iron too, and I'm like, more power to you. More power to you.
Craziness.
I'd rather scratch my eyeballs out.
Well, Brindley, this has been a great conversation. I hope we can meet in person one of these days, because you are a kick, and I really enjoyed this conversation today. Thank you so much.
Too. And thank you. It's an honor. And guys, if you want some information on talent, if you go to talentmistakes.com, I have an ebook, super short, and it gives you 10 mistakes that you make when you hire and retain talent. So check it out, and hopefully, and if you have any questions, I'm on Facebook, Brindley Tucker. I'm pretty easy to find, so love to help you guys.
And we will have her website and ways to reach her in the show notes at the end of the show today. So you can check it out on iTunes. Be sure to check us out at realestaterealworld.com. And we love your reviews. They help push us up in the ratings so that more people can hear us and hear great guests like Brindley. Thank you so much for joining us today on Real Estate Real World. Go out and make it a fantastic day.
Thank you for joining us today on Real Estate Real World, where we talk with masters and leaders in real estate and beyond on how we can raise the bar in our industry. Please subscribe over on iTunes. And while you're there, be sure to give us a review. Your reviews encourage us and help others find our podcast. For show notes and hot topics on what's going on right now in our real estate industry, hop on over to www.realestaterealworld.com and add your name to our email. Thanks again for listening. And go out there, be a part of the elite masterclass in raising the bar on the real estate industry.